Welcome to a chilly edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jarret Johnson. I'm joined by the mighty Joe Yeager. Mighty Joe, we're here outside the Jones, man. It's in the 40s, I think. I don't know what the wind. Luckily, it's not that windy. This is like the one day, and I'm sure it'll start gusting since I said that. But this is going to be a short mailbag. We have just a few questions, and it's really cold. But how are you today, man?
Cold, man, cold. There's not a lot of wind, but what there is, you can feel it. With that little, when that little 5 mile an hour breeze kicks up, it makes it a little bit nasty.
But we're dedicated, and we like being outside here, having the Jones in the background, having the SPC in the background. So we're going to jump right into your questions. First one comes from Tech Freak, who wants to know: is Wells the next Tuberville? Is he a hired gun who will leave when the going gets tough? There's no proof to show that is the case. He seems, if nothing else, feisty and a fighter. Just because they lost doesn't mean I don't think he's tough. 2 weeks ago we were talking about, he exudes toughness. That hasn't changed just because they lost. I get the frustration. Everyone's frustrated. Most of these questions are about those frustrations. But I haven't totally made up my mind on anything because it's 8 games into the first season, Mighty Joe. Now, on the other hand, some of the things we've seen have not been good. Obviously, some of the decisions I disagree with. The team losing to Kansas, bottom line. I'm not one of these people who are going to be like, oh, Kansas looks good all of a sudden and all that. They almost beat Texas. Well, Texas is 1-2 in their last 3 games. Guess who they beat? Kansas, So, Kansas is 1-5 in the Big 12. Guess who they beat? Tech. That doesn't sound good to me, But in terms of questioning Wells' toughness, no, I'm nowhere near questioning whether he's going to run when the going gets tough.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with his toughness either. I think he's got that. But there's, one thing, just, I don't know, a little, like a small, tiny red flag. I've kind of picked up on this early, and maybe it's just my imagination, but I kind of wondered if he felt a little bit insecure in his position here at Texas Tech, and I wonder if maybe he wondered if he was ready necessarily for this job. I wondered if he maybe thought that he'd wondered if he had been elevated a little bit too quickly and to these high levels. Big 12 football is about as high as you get, And because of that, I wondered if that maybe triggered a little bit of defensive-ness, that we've kind of prickly, you don't ask this question, you don't ask that question. Again, this could be just totally stuff I'm making up, but it's just something I kind of picked up on. And if that's the case, if he's had some self-doubts about this, then, and he's miserable because of what's going on, then I think the question is a legitimate one. And who knows, who's not to say that, he might look for an out at some point. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's to that point or that level, but it's just something I do wonder about a little bit.
That's interesting because I always attribute his prickliness to just being a coach. Yeah. Most coaches are just ornery, is the nicest way to say it, in my opinion. I've worked with a bunch of them. But then again, maybe it is a kind of self-defense mechanism type thing. I don't know. They've been so much more open than the previous regime, so maybe I haven't looked at it that way. Maybe I should. I don't know. Next question comes from Texas Tech Austin, who says, so far it seems that Wells is a cross between, this is not good, is a cross between Tuberville and Kingsbury. Tuberville, and then he seems to coach not to lose too bad, which that is the biggest red flag to me. Remember how pissed I was at coming out of the Oklahoma game, some of those decisions, and we've seen it in some of the other games. Some of those decisions to kick when you should go for it, or punt when you should go when it seems like maybe you should go for it. I will admit that has bothered me. But then he also seems like Kingsbury in learning how to coach at the Big 12 level, which is what you just alluded to. Please tell me, he says, I'm oversimplifying. If not, shoot me now. So Texas Tech also. Yeah, the whole learning to coach at the Big 12 level, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like that's overplayed. At some point, football is football. Yeah, there's obviously a huge talent gap, or at least a talent gap between, where he came from at Utah State and Tech. But then again, Utah State and Texas Tech this year, or at least last year, that might have been a heck of a game, to be honest. So there is a difference in getting your team, I think, maybe up to play. You're playing Oklahoma, then Oklahoma State, and then undefeated Baylor. I get that. But sometimes I feel like, and especially the way it's been portrayed by someone on the board or someone I've seen on social media, I feel, in my humble opinion, I feel like that's perhaps been overplayed a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe if you're talking about a talent gap, you talk about a coaching talent gap between the Big 12 and the Mountain West,
Sure.
or wherever it was that they came from. So it is a step up, in terms of coaches, So, yeah, I think there's probably a learning curve. And then if what you say, you're talking about coaching to lose or not to lose,
I'm never gonna like that.
Right. So if we're both seeing both of these things, then the poster or the questioner is raising a legitimate point.
Right.
A hybrid, a Tubberberry or Kingsville or whatever however you want to cross those two names together. But I mean, listen.
I think it's oversimplification.
Yeah,
in some ways too.
yeah. I mean, I think he's a better coach than Tuberville was when he was here, and I think he's a better coach than Kingsbury was when he was here. But how much better? That's what remains to be seen, and it's only going to play out for the next 2 or 3 years.
Quasimodo, this is a good question in my opinion. What do you do to fix this team? Everyone's saying, "Oh, this is terrible. He's terrible. Fire everybody." So, what would you do, Monty Joe, to fix this team?
For this season, I mean, if by fixing it you mean like winning some games,
Yes, playing better.
I think what you do right now is focus, on playing better, but I don't know if that's going to be good enough to actually win games. It's cliched, but to me at this point it's kind of a long-term deal where you're looking more at just getting the ship kind of turned around and moving in the right direction. And that means, as they say, the process, the day-to-day grind, getting a little bit better every day in practice, getting better from game to game. And does that mean you're, winning 2 more games the rest of the year, which may be the ceiling right now? I don't know. But you got to see guys playing a lot better than they did this past week. And you just hope to see improvement from here on out,
Absolutely. I think for me is I want to see them play some of the younger guys more, especially in the secondary. I mean, who you're playing right now isn't working. I mean, where's Daquan Watts? There's a guy who had multiple Power 5 offers. Now, and I'll have a story perhaps already posted by the time you're watching this, but about who's going to redshirt, who has already burned their red shirts, and so on and so forth. But Daquan Watts is a guy who, I mean, you can play him for the majority of the season and still retain his red shirt. Where is John Davis? Why hasn't he played? He was a highly recruited guy to Euless Trinity who had other Power 5 offers. I mean, it gets to a point, if he doesn't play, then is he going to be here moving forward? I mean, he's been here. This is his 3rd year. He should be. I'm one of those guys that say, wait, let him develop. But at this point, if he's not better than what they're fielding right now, who's getting torched by Kansas, then is he ever going to be ready? Quincy Addison's another. Adam Beck, what happened to him? He's not playing anymore. So if those guys can't play, then okay. I mean, I understand. But if they're worse than what you're putting out there in the secondary, then that's scary, Joe. So I at least want to see let's see what they can do. Right? What do you think?
Sure. Oh yeah, I think it's a great idea.
The final question comes from Raider Fan 01, who wants to know, he says, actually, from what he's heard and read, it appears that this coaching staff is losing the fan base. Now, there is no question about that. You lose to Kansas, and this was a very skeptical fan base anyways, to begin with, and for very understandable reasons, to be honest. So that, I mean, you want to talk about a valid point. That is certainly a valid point. Raider Fan 01's question is, have they lost the team, and what is the team's energy level and morale at this time? Yeah, I mean, honestly, we haven't talked to every player on the team. You can't know. I know a lot of them took to social media to say, we're sorry. Like Jordan Brooks, for example, said he apologized for putting shame on the program. Those kind of things, like, I like that, but at the same time, and he's done, in my opinion, everything the guy can individually, so I respect that coming from Jordan, but it's been my experience that those things tend to ring hollow. You know what I mean? Like, it's what happens on the field. So I think a lot of these guys, and I think not just at Tech, anywhere at this level, they're very driven by their personal goals. Now, and of course that goes with their team goals, but they have things they want to do. Like Jordan Brooks, for example, he wants to go play in the NFL, and he's going to. So it's not like he's going to take the last 4 games off in terms of not play hard and have that on tape. And that's the same, I think, for everybody. I mean, I think it will be interesting to watch who transfers in the offseason. I think we were going to no matter what as the depth chart was developed. But we're certainly, since they haven't had a lot of success, we're going to see more attrition this offseason than we did when Wells and the new staff first got here. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, talking about things that are overblown, I think the idea of a coach actually losing a team is probably something that doesn't happen as often as a lot of people would think.
It does happen.
It can happen, sure. Yeah, but not on a real regular basis or anything, fortunately for coaches. And I think one of the reasons is that players these days, I mean, to be perfectly honest, they don't take these things as seriously as we do.
They don't.
I think
that's 100% fact, Jack.
Right. And I remember Texas Tech played Stephen F. Austin in Dallas in basketball a couple of years ago, the Elite Eight team. And somebody was asking the Stephen F. Austin coach something about his players and how they took it and everything. And he said, as much as we would like for it to be otherwise, these guys, they're not real basketball junkies like us. They got other things going on. They got this and that. They got social media. And because of that, there's not the intensity of the commitment. Now, don't get me wrong. They work hard. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah.
That's for real. But once they're away from football, it's not uppermost on their mind anymore.
Right.
And when you don't have that sort of seriousness about it, you're probably not as likely to snap on your coach and just say, we're not going to do it anymore. These guys, they kind of got a job to do. They do it. They punch their time clock.
That's right.
Then they go home, and then they do what they do at home. So
that's right. They want their scholarship. They want their money, their stipend, all that. They got to do what the coaches say. And the coaches will put their boot and their patoots if they don't. I mean, that's just the way it is. Some coaches are more demanding than those. So, absolutely, I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think Wells has lost the team. I think, and you know what? We'll see. We'll have a better answer to that in Morgantown in a couple of weeks, because a couple of weeks to stew on this. I think they showed a great response after the Oklahoma game against Oklahoma State. Let's see if they can respond from this embarrassment against Kansas on the other end of the embarrassment spectrum, which is weird, in Morgantown against West Virginia. But Mighty Joe, we're going to go get warm. Great stuff from you as always. Great questions from y'all, and until next time.